Good morning, everybody. It's time for Lisa's. Oh my gosh. Lisa's Changing Perceptions. Professionalism out the door in the first 3 syllables today. Not even seconds. Lisa's Changing Perceptions with your host, Lisa Efflandt, brought to you by the kind, wonderful support of the Bremer Team, Keller Williams Success Realty, bremerteam.com, 847-456-6334. They bring families home. Lisa, good morning, Lisa's.
Good morning.
I have my eye on this card from one of our station supporters and sponsors, which is Reese's, and it came out Lisa's. Oh my gosh.
I've been called worse, so we're still okay, Pete.
Okay.
We're good. It's just always so nice to show our level of professionalism.
Every freaking time.
Oh,
I'm rolling in, my voice is golden, the tone is on. Lisa's.
It actually fits for today's show. So
I suppose, kind of. Okay, thanks for tying that in. Now I don't feel quite so bad.
Yeah, so now you could have pretended it was on purpose.
Oh, see, shoot. I should have.
Good morning. I'm Lisa with Lisa's Changing Perceptions. I'm a self-empowerment coach, hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner. You can reach me by contacting me by text or phone, 262-573-7055, at Lisa's Changing Perceptions at Gmail, lisaschangingperceptions.com. You can also find me on Facebook under Lisa Changing Perceptions, or as always through 216thenet.com, and Pete will get any messages to me that you may send in. If you have questions, comments, topics you'd like to discuss, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free to get a hold of us. I would love the show to become more interactive. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. For those of you listening, know that I do the show off the cuff. This show is actually, it's kind of off the cuff because that's just what I do, but I actually outline the show today, which is very, very unusual. I will tell you, this is the first show I have ever pre-thought and pre-written. Ever. But the week, Pete and I were talking, the week has been very strange. For those of you who are feeling like things are a little bit different and feeling like things are a little bit off, this show is going to bring a little bit of the woo-woo into us because the veil, so to speak, people refer to it as the veil, is very, very thin, and the sensitivities of people are rising. So if you're in public and you're noticing the energy feels different. Pete and I were talking before the show, and I was also talking with a friend of mine yesterday, that the silence almost sounds deafening loud. And sometimes in moments, it feels like time has stood still. It's the energies that are changing around us. People are getting stirred. I'm running into people that are struggling with things from so long ago, things that they thought people always say, well, I thought I conquered that. Well, no, you buried it, obviously, because it's coming back up. I even have a new client that I'm so proud of, and I love her to death, and I hope she's not mad that I say this. She's 80 years old, and I could not be more flattered and proud to have her as a client because she is truly the example of it is never too late to clean up your garbage. It is never too late to get rid of it and stop carrying it. And she is totally an inspiration to me because I run into so many people who are like, oh, it's too late to fix that. It's too late to fix that. It's too late. And I thought, look at you go, girl. You absolutely go. And conquering some things from 50 and 60 years ago, even looking at them now. And I thought, you're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. And it kind of is part of the show today. And so I haven't been sleeping. Spirits have been very, very active to the point that my roommate, who was not necessarily into all of this, I mean, she was open to it, but not into it, came into me the other day and said, are you okay? And I said, no, not really. Why? Because I hadn't slept for a couple of weeks. And she said, I can hear you snoring. Yes, I am the world's loudest snorer. She said, I can hear you snoring, so I know you're sleeping. And the cat, because I have a cat, was downstairs with her. And she said, and I can hear footsteps walking around your bed. And when I come upstairs to go into my room, I can hear whispers of conversation. The spirits are very, very, very active. The energy of the spirits right now are very different. They're pushing things harder. And people who have not been open to this are beginning to wonder because of what they're feeling, what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. And other people are almost being forced at warp speed to go through soul searching, soul repair. I don't know, whatever words you want to put through it. So anyway, so I got a good night's sleep one night, and it was really funny. I was telling Pete that I didn't even think about it until I was at work. I do have a day job, a bill-paying job, I call it. And I was like, what's the matter with me? And I realized, and I hugged myself, I'm not tired and I'm not yawning. Oh, this is unusual, because it had been weeks. And then yesterday morning, I woke up very cloudy and very foggy, but I had slept about 10 or 11 hours. And so today's show is, I'm going to refer to it as semi-channeled, because anytime I tried to avoid the thought in my head of what was popping in with this, it came back. Go ahead.
Well, and we're going to let you continue, but we just want to say hello to Shambi. I hope I'm saying that correctly, who is actually tuning in and listening from South Africa this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. So I was halfway in a fog and thoughts kept popping in, and they wouldn't go away. And I was so over rested that I couldn't stay awake, if that makes sense. I told my girlfriend I felt like a sleep hangover. So I went to lay down and it wouldn't stop. So it didn't stop until I got up to start typing, hence why today's show is typed. So this is going to be kind of interactive for those who choose to do it, but you don't have to voice it out loud. This is for you at home to deal with in your own mind. So I'm going to go through it and I'm going to explain it and I'm going to talk about it. And then I'm going to read it and then we're going to talk about it some more. So we will work with it together. I thank you all for coming here. I even encourage you, and I'll yap for another couple seconds so that you have time to get a pen and paper. In case one of these things triggers something in you, to write down the thought that pops into your mind as I bring it up or as I talk about it. So that's what I mean by interactive. So today we're going to kind of do something like that. And I know people always kind of join us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just kind of get it underway, because this is unusual for me. I'm kind of out of my comfort zone because I'm having to kind of do it this way. So I'm out of my comfort zone by feeling like I'm prepared. So the topic of today's show is what is perfect? And that's part of what has been happening this week and the things that have been presented in front of me and the people that come into my world or my energy space, or whatever you want to put it, this week is challenging my view of myself, and challenging, and this is what people will deny, but I argued with it, challenging my judgment. Challenging my judgments and where those judgments are coming from. So in all of that mind talk, this is kind of what happened yesterday. So we're going to go with it. Now I'm going to ask some questions. And all I'm going to do is ask the question. I don't want responses right now. We will discuss them. But as I ask each thing, if a thought pops into your head, or a person's voice pops into your head, or a memory or whatever pops into your head, I do suggest that you kind of just jot it down. And I'll explain to you why. And it won't be anything that we're going to present to the world for you. But it will be something that you can ponder later. So this is some seed planting to start with.
Okay, I have my pen ready.
Oh, Pete's going to do it with us. He's so good.
I'm going to play too.
So the question that Spirit presented to me was, because I was arguing with myself. Oh, I'll get teary. Look at me go. What is perfect? What is the perfect life? What is the perfect body? What is the perfect friend? What is the perfect spouse or partner? What is the perfect home? What is the perfect job? What is the perfect car? What is the perfect hobby? What is the perfect passion? What is the perfect vacation? What is the perfect job? What is the perfect child? We could do a whole show on that one, couldn't we? So as I ask these questions, what will happen is the unconscious mind pops into thought. So I ask you now, as I ask those, and you just randomly either wrote down or thought, with each question or with any question in particular, what thought came to your mind? Whose voice was it in? And when I ask you, what is perfect about it, compared to whom? And compared to what? Those are the ravelings of the unconscious mind. Those are the things that we absorb. As I've talked before, we have the unconscious mind is developed from birth until about 8 or 9 years old for the majority. And then we begin to filter it through our critical mind with our conscious mind thoughts. And our conscious mind and our unconscious mind, well, they clash. Most of the time they clash. Because our conscious mind has world experience and life experience. And our conscious mind sees things from the perspective of the filters of our mind and the filters of our eyes in which we see life based on our experiences. And our unconscious mind tends to contradict that, because our unconscious mind was created before we could be anything really but a sponge. And that contradiction is annoying and frustrating and challenging.
Yeah.
But it's also a great insight, and it's one of life's great perfections. And that's what Spirit was arguing with me. Not arguing with me. I guess it was arguing with me. But it was arguing with me because I was being a stubborn German, I don't want to, toddler stomping my feet, that I didn't argue it. So these are the things that society, the questions came up, is those are the things that in society we hear people say they have to have. Right? These are the things that would make us perfect. If I only had the perfect job, if I had only been the perfect parent, if I had only had the perfect child, if my child would only be this, if I only had that car, if I only had that life, if only my body looked different, if I could lose this, if only, and even funny enough, even my hair gets brought up. And that'll actually be brought at the show today. So these are the things that society has told us what perfection is. And even though oftentimes most people deny that they care, I don't care what other people think. The truth is much of those thought processes come to our mind when we compare ourselves to another thing, to another person. We compare our value based on what somebody else has or someone else does. So the question is, do you need all of these things to be perfect? Because if you want perfection, you must focus. If you focus on creating perfect and all of those things are perfect, then you have to focus on all of those things at once, at one time. And that brings chaos. If you focus only on one, it promotes a feeling of being off balance. If you focus on money and wealth, do you not also realize that you have to sacrifice peace and self-care? Do you not also have to sacrifice family and friends? Do you not also have to find, if you focus only on happiness and laughter, do you not also have to sacrifice material comforts that you may actually wish for? When you focus on everything being peaceful and perfect, do you not discover that all you tend to see is what is not peaceful or comforting? It's where the unconscious mind and the unconscious thought leads us. Because when we're always thriving for something different, and believing that what we have and what's around us is not perfect, just the way it is in the moment that it is, and we thrive for perfection, what we tend to only see is the lack of perfection. And Pete and I had a conversation today before the show about the earth and how the earth is perfect. And it was funny because it's actually part of what Spirit was showing to me. So the questions that then came, because those are all things that I thrive for, because it's human nature. It's human nature. I will say that I've conquered many things to where maybe I don't have to have certain things in order to feel a certain way. And part of my pride, as I've learned through this, is my ability to come on to, 600,000 and 700,000 people and say, hey, guess what? I'm not perfect. I know the hair thing got brought up in the whole thing because every time I mention that my hair is fake, only the top of it is, but my hair is fake, people say, oh my gosh, why would you tell anybody that? Nobody would ever notice. And I laugh because I don't know, it doesn't bother me that it's fake. Do I wish my real hair was thicker? I certainly do. Do I wish my life wouldn't have become so stressful that my hair fell out? Of course. But the reality is that it did. And so I found a resolve to that. And by being open and honest about that, there's probably thousands of women saying, hey, maybe I'll try that. I have that same problem too. So maybe my imperfection and being open and vulnerable about my imperfection is the perfect answer to somebody else or to many others in a society that says you have to be perfect. But what is perfect? What is perfect? What is perfect to you might not be perfect to me. What is perfect? What are we thriving for? What is this perfection, and who determines what that bar is? What if the universe or God or spirit or Mother Earth or whatever you choose to be your focus, what if that is perfection? And our discomfort is the fact that we're around perfection that we don't even notice. And if we notice the perfection that's around us naturally, without effort, we'd realize the imperfection in us is the perfection within us. What if that were the case? What if we actually looked at the fact that maybe our imperfections are somebody else's perfect? There's somebody that I met years ago who told me of their life and their imperfections. And it was funny because they were horrified to tell me. And I found it to be the most vulnerable, integrity-filled thing that they could have done. And what's interesting is that it's a situation where society would have looked at it and said, "Ugh, what are you thinking?" And in truth, it happened exactly when I needed it to happen, in exactly the situation that I needed it to happen. And it brought me to exactly where I am right now. It's my reason. It's my reason I went back to school. It's my reason that I found compassion. And all those imperfections before that situation allowed me to have the compassion for that situation and the understanding. What if your imperfections are every perfection that God or spirit or the universe or whatever ever needed? What if your imperfections are exactly the perfect result for someone else, therefore making you perfect? Perfect for the plan, perfect for the world, perfect for the situation, perfect for the person who comes into your existence. And what if we're missing what perfect is because we're searching for it in places that it's not? So part of the argument is, and part of our question, I say argument because that's how I debate with spirit. They're very aware of my headstrongness. I am no less headstrong with spirit than I am. So they said, what if perfect is the anger that comes up that says you feel something that needs to be seen? What if perfect is the sadness that brings tears that shows that you still feel with your heart? What if perfect is the pounds that show you love yourself enough that at some point you are attempting to self-nurture the difficult things that you try to hide? What if perfect is the stretch marks that came because you brought life into the world? What if perfect is the wrinkles that show the nights awake because you cared for yourself or another? What if perfect is the regrets that haunt you that show you have a conscience? What if perfect is the lessons that you learned throughout life and the difficulties? What if perfect is the laughter that makes your belly hurt and radiates a room? What if perfect is the song that makes you feel and remember? What if perfect is the wind that breezes by that reminds you that life in nature is ever changing and ever moving? What if perfect is the appreciation of the sun and the moon, as both light and darkness will come and go, but neither lasts forever, but you get something from both? What if perfect is the wildflowers that grow in a field with nothing other than the nurture and the faith that's there for them to absorb and feel, and without thought they offer beauty to their surroundings with no effort, just the faith and knowing that in the moment that they're cared for? What if perfect is the strength at the times that makes you weak, but you find the way to move past? What if perfect is the ability to see another human being and understand that their perfect may not be the same as your perfect? What if perfect is the loneliness that tells you you don't hate people, you need to change the people you offer yourself to? What if perfect is the true heart and soul connection you feel sometimes when you're in the presence of someone that has or will change your life forever? What if perfect is the discomfort in a new situation and the ability to remain within it if it means you grow? What if perfect is being in any home that provides for you as long as it's filled with foundation, security, and love? What if as perfect as seeing the rainbows after a storm and realizing that the beauty didn't come before the storm, it glowed after the storm cleared away the debris and gave nutrients to life around it? What if perfect is knowing that perfect changes? What if perfect is knowing that at everyone or everything will change to adjust to your new perfect? What if perfect is you in each and every moment? As when you don't feel perfect and when you don't see perfect, it's your spirit's way of showing you what needs seen, what needs nurture, what you have an opportunity to change, even if that change is hard and needs focus, or if that change is only to change your perception of perfect. What if perfect is the ability to see what you view as a, oh, I don't know what, this is triggering somebody. It's not me. There's somebody on the air. This one's going to trigger because it's making me cry. What if the ability to see, what if perfect is the ability to see what you view as imperfection and realize that it's all the parts of life and choices and experience that make you uniquely you? What if perfect is the blessing in realizing that by feeling all of those so-called imperfections, you are being offered life's greatest blessing? And by feeling them so intensely, your spirit is yelling for you to see the opportunities. By stepping forward in the discomfort, you do have the strength and the power to change as well as accept all aspects of you that you choose to. What if perfect is the moment you realize that only people who do not see the perfections within themselves will attempt to place their views of perfection onto you? What if perfect is the moment you realize that DNA, money, jobs, friends, and all that we deem makes perfect are only a reflection of the inside unconscious mind that believes perfection can only be found when someone else sees it within us? What if perfect is realizing that as long as we are unable to see perfection within the flaws, we will never be able to see the perfection within the perfect? That is semi-spirit channeled, I will say, because it would not go away until I typed it. And that's
Wow.
part of how I know that spirit comes through and says it's time. And the whole week has kind of shown and experienced, not just my personal experiences, but the people who end up coming in and the phone call, the person you run into, the situations that you invite. Go ahead.
Denise Maple, by the way, earlier whilst you were reading said good morning, but now says it's beautiful.
Good morning, Denise.
Yeah, this is, are we supposed to tell you?
Now you can if you choose.
Well, you were going, what is perfect? And you're going through your whole list. And first of all, the voice I heard was my own.
Okay.
Nobody else's.
Okay.
My response to every single one of those, except the car, was happy. Nothing else. And it was just.
But what's happy? What is happy?
Just, for me, when I say happy, that means kind of like joyful contentment or enjoyment or.
So is happy for you a feeling or a state of mind or a situation in life?
It's a combination.
Okay.
It is a feeling and a state of mind.
Okay. And what if somebody else said that happy for them was a new car?
That's their happy.
There you go.
That's their happy. It's not my happy. That's their happy. And that's okay.
But when I say that, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
What?
When I say, but okay, and this actually isn't true, but I'm going to use it as an example. My happy is a new diamond ring.
Then that's your happy. That's okay. So if that's your happy, that's for you.
There you go. But now knowing that, and I also know that you've also done a lot of self-work. So knowing that, how many times, and we just talked about a situation this morning that it's your choice whether you bring up on the air or not.
Yeah.
How many times have we said, oh, this is what's happy for me, or this is what's peaceful for me. This is what is my passion, or this is what I believe in. This is what I do to feel better. And people have said, but why don't you?
Yeah. And for me, okay, we can use an example that was me this morning because I have been given an open invitation to participate in something that, and I'm not going to call them out or anything, does once a year that they absolutely love to do. And it's good. And I actually love that this fellow goes and does it because when he comes back, he is
zen.
He's just wonderful.
Zen.
He's zen.
Right.
He's excited. He's truly rejuvenated. But what he does to get there is probably one of the most abhorrent activities I could possibly think of doing because I don't like the way the environment that he goes into and other people who are excited about this, that are going, that I know, the environment that they go into, it makes me feel absolutely horrible, like literally gross. And it's not a gross thing by common standards.
No.
It's actually a
But for
very,
you,
but for me, it's not anywhere I want to be. Not even close.
and maybe that's a great example of everything isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, that's kind of what Spirit's point was, as when I was having this debate in my mind of, in truth, this came about because of me focusing on failures. Well, if I could have only done this. Well, what if I would have learned this sooner? What if I would have seen this before? What if I would have realized this before? What if I had gone to school earlier? What if I had invested in my business differently? Oh my gosh, my mind was absolutely in the dark, deep zone. And anything that came to mind that was a accomplishment, I was going, oh yeah, that's fine, but that's fine, but, and that's how our unconscious mind works. And there's times that I do, in fact, question my sanity. Pete and I were talking about that this morning too. But the truth is that those are thoughts and those are things that really do come into people's minds. And those are arguments that we have with ourselves, and they are self-sabotages. And they do have to do with our struggle to see our value, because we seem to be in a world that's created our value to be somebody else's criteria. And the truth is no matter how, we'll call it Facebook life, because I call it Facebook life. No matter how perfect somebody's life seems to be, Facebook life seems to be.
Yeah.
The truth is that there's not a person on the planet that doesn't have these kinds of thoughts, these kinds of issues, these kinds of struggles. And there's not a person on the planet that hasn't gone through some kind of trauma. The difference is that what you choose to become within it, what do you see within it? And even when I say that, there's people who argue it and go, well, right, because if I would have seen this, then this wouldn't have happened. Okay, maybe that's true. But maybe that wasn't the perfect moment for you to see it. Maybe you hadn't learned enough or seen enough or grown enough. Maybe you hadn't had developed the capability of seeing it. The blessing is you do now.
Yeah.
You do know. You do know. My 80-year-old client, guess what she sees now? I want to face this stuff. I want to deal with it.
Wow.
It's never too late. It's never too late. So what if all of your so-called imperfections were perfect? What if it was perfect timing? Because even in my argument that I went back to school at 50 for something that, you know, people don't understand, which I always like, oh, that's me. Do life the easy way. But the truth is that up until that time, all those life experiences are what make me in truth good at what I do. So had I gone back to school 10 years earlier or 20 years earlier for exactly this, I wouldn't be doing it exactly the way that I do it now. I wouldn't be good for the clients that I tend to see. Not all of them, but some of them. I told you I tend to magnet people who are difficult and who standard talk therapy just hasn't been effective for. And I tend to get brought into my world and into my office people who have learned poor coping skills or who like to be intimidating in order to avoid and things like that. And I love them. I love them. Just like when I worked at the school, I love those naughty kids in the ISS. I think they're fabulous because they're smart and they've learned how to survive in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And I love to challenge them and I love to question them. And had I not had the experiences that I had in my life where I was challenged so strongly by very dominant people and been shattered so often by very dominant people, I wouldn't have the strength today to be the person that finally at some point in her life said, enough. I will never be made to feel like I'm in a corner, and I will never be shattered, and I will never be hit, and I will never be harmed. And I will stand up and I will fight, and maybe I'll die fighting, but I'll go down with a good one. All of those things were created because of all my so-called imperfections. All the things that people said, why would you do that? Well, I don't know, because at the time I freaking did it. At the time, it was the best I could with what I had in the moment. And had I not had all those experiences, I wouldn't be good at what I do. I wouldn't be the one who's unafraid to challenge the person who wants to challenge me or intimidate me to back off of something. I don't pick a fight and I don't instigate, but I'm referring to people who are actually coming to me because they want to break past that cycle. But the discomfort level gets to a point where just before a major change comes horrible discomfort.
Yep.
And pushing past that barrier is so uncomfortable that they're going to challenge. And why do we challenge? Why? I get that a lot too. Like somebody says, why do people say they want to change and then they don't do it? Because when we become uncomfortable, our unconscious mind will search for the thing that has brought comfort in the past in that same situation.
Yeah.
And so for many, it's intimidation or it's yelling or it's violence. Never in any time in any show will you ever see me promote violence or say that violence is ever okay or anything close to perfect, for the record. I'm explaining, though, that the unconscious mind will revert back to what has worked in the past to get me out of this discomfort. Well, face it, if you're coming to change that, then although that's worked in the past, it didn't work out too freaking well. And it hasn't brought you to where you want to be. It hasn't made you more comfortable. It hasn't made you feel better. It hasn't made you feel accomplished. It hasn't made you feel past it.
Yeah.
But pushing past that discomfort, that self-sabotage that we do to push past that is because it's our unconscious mind, the child in us screaming, I am so uncomfortable. What will make this stop? So we revert back to an old habit. The reason that I challenge people and I challenge those situations is because the only way to break past that is to force that unconscious mind to find a new answer. And to find the new answer, you have to challenge the old answer's effectiveness. That's what NLP is. That's what those things are. So people in talk therapy that are friends of mine and what have you say, oh my God, how do you deal with it? Why do you argue with them? I love the argument. I don't argue, yell. I question. But it's my way of saying, let's question your thought process. The same way Spirit, in fact, was questioning my thought process over these last few days. My thought process was, this is all pointless. What's the frickin' point? Nothing's better. And I was in that ugly zone. And yes, people, I get into that ugly zone. You will never see me on the soapbox and say, no, I never. Not true. That would just be horseshit. That's for the the world of the famous people who know how to do those things. I am not one of them. But to challenge that thought process, and the only way to push yourself past that old pattern is to either find it within yourself to challenge that thought process, or that Spirit or the universe blesses you with a human being that will challenge that thought process. Because you have to challenge that thought process to force it to see something differently, to see a new level of comfort, to see a new way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because we will naturally revert back to an old behavior, even if that old behavior has an outcome that is negative. Your unconscious mind is only searching for comfort in the very second. And that very second that you are uncomfortable, your unconscious mind is searching for comfort in that very second. So it doesn't care about what the outcome is in an hour or 2 hours or a week or a year. It says right now in this moment, I am so frigging uncomfortable and I need to find a way out of it. In the past, this has worked. The challenge and the difficulty in that is saying, but wait a minute, now I consciously know the outcome of that behavior doesn't work. The outcome of that behavior causes more regret, more sadness, more struggle. So I have to consciously push past it. I have to consciously push past it and force myself to remain within the discomfort so that I'm forced to find another way out of the discomfort. And we can't do that unless we acknowledge those things. So we have to acknowledge those things. And we all get placed in situations in life, and we all get placed around people, and we all get placed in conditions, and we all have all these things that seem to intermingle. What if your ability to move past that? What if your strength to be vulnerable enough to admit your so-called imperfection and finally throw it out there on the table, it is actually the most perfect thing you can do, because someone in your future, somebody in your life, something around you is going to see you now as the possibility. What if what you viewed as failure is somebody else's gift? Because you give them the gift to not be perfect. What if everything about everything is actually perfect? And the only thing that isn't perfect is our view of it. I have a very wonderful friend, and I'm guessing she's listening. She usually does. She'll know who she is. And I have the blessing that I talk to her almost every day. And the other day, and she's one of my people that I can say the irrational insanity to, and she accepts the fact that I'm not actually insane, but I'm having an insane moment. And she said, Lisa, I'm so fed up with myself, and I'm so fed up with things. And I said, okay, what is that? What are you so fed up with? And she said that I wish my freaking life away. Every day I wish my life away. And that kind of was part of all of this today, is that we spend our life going, well, in the future I'll have, or in the future if I don't have, or in the future I'm going to do, or what if I don't do this, and what if I don't accomplish this? And it brings up all these anxieties and all these insecurities and all these things, and we truly miss the moment. We truly miss the moment. Just like the example I've given on the air before, and I'll use it again because I like the analogy of it, is if you're driving down the highway and you're afraid to drive next to a semi, which that I bring that because that's one of my discomforts. I don't like to drive next to a semi. But if I'm next to the semi and I can't get away from it, I'm kind of stuck in that position. And all I'm doing is staring at the semi that I fear, and it's causing me so much discomfort. And that's all I can see. How many exits did I miss that I could have turned off and spent 5 minutes somewhere else and let the semi pass? How many sunrises or sunsets were beautiful and I didn't see them because I couldn't look in front of me. I could only stare at the semi. How many opportunities did I miss to find a different way out of that situation than to stare at the semi? Because all I could focus on was staring at the semi. All I could focus on was the fear. Mm-hmm. We focus on so many things that are not the only option in our life or are not even in our current reality, that we miss so much of what's natural and beautiful right around us. I've seen the strangest things this week on Facebook and videos and things that it all comes together, that the universe is perfect, the world is perfect, everything is perfect. And if we just see it for what it is, and if we just see it for perfect, and one of them I was telling people before the show, it was so weird because it caught my eye and I just stared at it, and it was an octopus, a video of an octopus. And it was swimming through the ocean, and it was able to change its color and even the texture of its skin. Is that what you'd call an octopus?
I suppose, yeah.
To meet its environment. So as it was swimming just through the water, it was a very light colored. And then as it kind of dove down and went a little bit into deeper, darker water, and the growth around it was darker, it turned to a really dark brown. And then finally, as it sat down to rest, it sat down on a rock and it changed to the rock. Literally, its skin texture, colors, everything changed, and it looked just like the rock, and it was within its environment. And I thought, isn't that interesting? It's interesting for a million reasons. Is look at it to just choose to adapt and flow to its environment around it. At no point, I doubt the octopus ever said, geez, I don't look good in this dark brown.
Probably not.
I doubt it. Or, I don't like these spots. I don't like this texture of the rock. I don't like it when the rock texture skin is too flashy. I know that people will judge it.
Better not go by that purple coral.
Right. Yeah, because purple's not my color.
Right.
At no point did it do that. It just flowed with what was happening around it, and it accepted itself for what it was, and it knew what it was capable of doing, and it just adjusted. And then the miracle that Isn't it weird that an animal can do that?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing that a creature can do that? The perfection of what that animal's natural survival is and its contribution to the earth. Its contribution. The spider catches the flies and the mosquitoes, and look at its contribution to the earth. Look at the web. Look at how hard it works to create its home. I doubt that the spider says, "Oh my gosh, like that guy's web's bigger. I need to."
You got web envy.
Right. I need to go build a bigger web. That guy's web's bigger.
Yeah.
Before anybody asks, and this is an ongoing joke, no, I do not know the purpose of a mosquito. And someday when I meet with spirit, I will ask, because I don't understand the purpose of a mosquito. But the point, that's an ongoing joke for somebody who's listening. Everything around us has its own perfect imperfections. Everything around us, the things that annoy one person are a blessing to another. Everything around us is perfectly imperfect. Why can't we be perfectly imperfect? What if that's our contribution while we're here? What if our struggle, what if our so-called mistake, what if our so-called regrets are actually the example or the blessing to someone else? What if your deepest, darkest things that you look at in yourself are the passion and the drive for another person to find their path in life? What if everything you've accomplished or the way that you're seen is actually the purpose for another human being? And it's funny because somebody was angry at me and made a comment to me that my big jewelry and my big hair and my weird clothes was ridiculous. And it's funny because I was very conservative before my husband died. It's just another thing that happened when my husband died, when I went, you know what, life's too freaking short to worry about things that are going to get other people's approval. So that's when I decided to allow myself to wear big jewelry and weird clothes. And I don't care, and I love them. But it was interesting because for a short period of time, and it was a short period of time, blessed that it was a short period of time, I did not put on jewelry. And I walked around in my standard jeans and a t-shirt because I thought, oh, I look ridiculous. And I thought, after a few days, I was like, I feel so uncomfortable. Why do I feel uncomfortable? And then I realized, because you're not being you are.
Yeah.
And you're judging who that is based on someone else's view. And I thought, okay, well, then maybe it's not ridiculous. And maybe it's not ridiculous because I like it. And, that whole mind process caught. So whenever I get into that twisting of the crazy in the mind, I do connect with spirit. It's my way. I pray, I talk, I whatever it is. And sometimes I don't always hear spirit talk back, but situations come in front of me. And it was funny because once I put my jewelry back on and my weird little jackets and my, whatever, 2 people within 24 hours that are friends of mine, very good friends of mine, called and said, I've been thinking lately, you always look nice. You always, on your show or even at the store or whatever, you always look nice and you always put on your jewelry. And where do you shop? Because I'd like to go get something that I really like. I always am in my jeans and my t-shirt. And I would like to find some things that sometimes I can, just put on and be happy and I really love.
There you go.
And I started laughing because those are weird perfections that spirit brings you. Because that was, to me, or at least for me, validation of spirit going, be who you are, influence who you need. You don't have to influence with intention. Sometimes just being who you are, the aspects of you that you choose to be who you are the passion or are the example for someone else. That's part of why I also believe that, I come out here and I throw my skeletons on the table. Why is that? Do I do it for sympathy? Do I do it for... No, because I've truly learned in my life, at least, that the allowing of another human being to release what it is they hide is one of the greatest blessings that we're here to offer. And we cannot do that when we sit in a stage of superiority. when we sit in a stage of superiority, when we sit in a stage of judgment, when we sit in a state that says, but this is the right way, and you feel that the right thing for you is the right thing for someone else, we create the minds and the society and a culture that says, this is what perfect is. Well, I defy any of you to, on the list that I even gave you, which is small, and we could go on for years with the different topics that go on there, to say it is possible to accomplish perfection in any of those things, yet alone all of them. Because no matter what you feel your perfect is, and this is very interesting, and if you self-reflect through your life, you'll see it. When you were blessed with what you asked for, because we've all had prayers, right? And we've seen those things come true. When you were blessed with what you asked for, you were excited for a moment. And once you became comfortable, you asked for more. So then that thing you asked for in that moment wasn't your perfect, right? Because if it was, you wouldn't be asking for more. You wouldn't be looking for more.
Right.
What it was is the thing that you thought would make it perfect. And then when you got there, you realized, I'm still not perfect. So you're searching for the new perfect. What if the search is the struggle? What if the search is what's making us so freaking hard? What if the search for perfection is actually what makes life the hardest it can possibly be? What if everything you ever thought you ever wanted was granted to you? And then you had to realize perfection was none of that, and you still have to do the work anyway. How amazing would that be? Do you know how many people I know that came into money or that had money? And face it, that's the big thing that most people feel is the ultimate.
The money, the financial stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And it sucks when you don't have it.
And it sucks when you do. And that's what I've learned in life, because I have seen in my personal life experience, I have known people that have had money. And what then they craved for, because face it, people say, well, money could get you anything. No, it can't. Because what they craved for was friends that actually didn't want something from them. Friends that didn't see them for what they could offer. Friends that didn't expect them to have the perfect car and the perfect house, and didn't expect them to have the resources for everything. Friends that just saw them as a person that they enjoyed. Friends that they knew that if they lost every single thing they ever had, they knew would still be there. So life wasn't perfect. There's always the conflict. There's always. And what I found is that the things that we focus on that we feel will make perfect are things that can be taken away in an instant. All of those things on that list can be taken away in an instant. And I mean all of them, and sadly I do, because I have also lost a child. All of those things can be taken away in an instant. We focus so much energy and so much time, and we put so much value on the things that can be taken away from us in an instant. We have no control over it. No one can take away your ability to see the rainbow after the storm. No one can take away your appreciation for whatever you see with your eyes or whatever you value. No one can take away from you the feeling that you had the first time you had your first kiss, or the first time you held someone's hand, or truthfully, maybe all of them if the right person's in your life. No one can take away the feeling of pride when you accomplish something that you had tried for. No one, but you tried for it for you. There's the difference. You tried for it for you. No one can take away the strength that you had to get through a difficult situation. No one can take away your integrity to be vulnerable and face the truth. No one can take away your integrity to be honest and loyal, even if it costs you. No one can take away the kindness that you brought to somebody when you held the door open for them. The person may not have appreciated it, but no one can take away the fact that that kindness to offer it was within you. No one can take away those things. And at the end of life, and sadly, I have experienced through my husband what the end of life feels like. I promise you, you're not thinking about those things. You're not thinking about the dirty socks on the floor, or the car that you couldn't have, or the house that you never got. You're not thinking about any of those things. You're thinking about the moments and the times that you felt. Whether it be sadness, whether it be happiness, whether it be anger, whether it be love. You're talking about the times that you felt. You're looking at the times that you accomplished. And you may be looking at the places that you failed, but you're seeing within them finally the truth behind the reason. There are so many things that we place our energy and our focus on, trying to be perfect, when perfect will always change. And even if you find what you believe is perfect, you'll realize you have to search for more, because the perfect isn't outside of you. Go ahead.
Donna Baker Leckman says, I'm on a very thought-provoking show and a chance to get real with yourself. Thank you. Big exclamation point.
That is my mom. Yeah. She has to say nice stuff to me.
No, yeah. I was immediately going to say, no, she doesn't. But yeah, it's what moms do for the most part.
So in experiencing it and seeing what's going on around, it's what I've discovered, and even with clients and what have you. I have clients that come in and friends even, and people that I know that say, well, this has happened because I wasn't the perfect parent. That could be a whole show in itself. What is the perfect parent? What is that? Is there a perfect parent? I think there's people who think that they're the perfect parent, but is there the perfect parent? And here's the contradiction I'll give to that, because it's an actual conversation that I had. I know people and deal with people who have made mistakes that society would really shun and criticize. And they can't forgive themselves for those mistakes. And so within that, they live within the mistakes. And my response has always been, but what if in your mistakes that you see as a parent, and the mistakes that you see that you feel that you made, what if within that, now that you've seen them, you changed and you conquered and you put those mistakes out there for the truth out on the table? What if you were the example of hope? What if you were the example of possibility? What if then, when the child that you feel you messed up so much with, because they're making mistakes, what if when their light bulb comes on, same as yours has, you're then the person that they go to as the possibility and the hope? You were their example that it is possible, and so they don't live their life that way. What if they parent differently because of those examples? And then I have a client who came in, and interestingly enough, when they were talking about their relationship with their father, they were talking about how incredibly wonderful and perfect their father was. How they were always perfectly kind and loving, and always treated them like they were a princess, and never raised a voice to them, never raised a hand to them, always made sure that the birthdays were special, and you know what I mean? Just all this wonderful love, all this perfection, nothing ever bad in that relationship dynamic. They've been divorced 4 times. Want to know why? They're seeking a perfection that isn't real. Because I promised that Dad had his own issues, and I promised that behind closed doors he struggled with resentment, with anger, with childhood hurts, with finances, with job, with friendship conflict. But the perfect parent isn't supposed to expose their children to those things, right? The perfect parent is supposed to be this wonderful human being
Well, you want to do your best as a parent to help them not feel the struggles and pains and failures and stuff that you did. I mean,
But
that's
in the
been,
lack
well,
of,
for me,
right.
that's what my being a dad to me in part was. I don't want them to have to go through the things that I went through.
Right. But in the hiding of them, in order to protect them from things that are uncomfortable, but uncomfortable truths, we've caused the inability to deal with it. And we've caused the inner search of perfection to be of something that isn't true. Because there is no human being that doesn't have regrets. There is no human being that at some point doesn't have a struggle, that doesn't have these things. So by hiding these things and trying to put on this force of perfection, in what people would stereotypically say, oh my gosh, how lucky. How lucky. Because many people would say, oh my gosh, well, my father or my mother was this or that, or this happened and that happened. And, you know, how lucky you must have been to have such a perfect, loving parent. Really? Because it caused its own amount of struggles. It caused its own perceptions that were off. It's all these ideas that we have in our minds of what's perfect for somebody else and trying to be that, when the truth is, you being perfect for you in every moment is what's perfect for everyone else. Because spirit, the universe, the world, and you've all seen it, have people come into your consciousness and your awareness that needed exactly what and who you are. Just be. There is no such thing as perfect, except for the fact to know that you're perfect in every moment of every day, and that the reason that you didn't learn it sooner is you weren't ready to. The reason that you didn't do it sooner is because you weren't ready to. The reason that you didn't know it sooner is it hadn't been presented to you. But all those things that were presented to you all those times before were what made you aware of it now. Period. I've always been the believer, and it's never too late. As long as you're breathing, you have hope. As long as you're breathing, you have hope. And it is a society view of what purpose in life is. Because we all know that one of my things is that I would love to public speak. But what if I'm never Tony Robbins? Does that mean I never affected anybody? Does that mean I never had a purpose? If I didn't affect millions, does that mean I didn't have a purpose? I remember when I worked at the school and I wanted to work with these kids that everybody saw as so bad, and I just loved them. And somebody actually said to me, so what? You're going to help, what, 1 or 2 kids? Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe 1 or 2 of those kids is going to grow up to affect 1 million because of what they learned. You don't know. And other people's perceptions and other people's judgments and other people's ideas of what success and purpose and perfect is what's causing all this conflict. So what if you just for one day even took a deep breath and said, for today, I'm perfect exactly the way I am. And today, every decision I've ever made was absolutely perfect for me to be exactly where I am right now. And what if you just accepted that even for a moment, for an hour, for a day? Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next week. Again, if you'd like to reach me, you can reach me at 262-573-7055 by phone or by text. You can also reach me at lisaschangingperceptions.com, lisaschangingperceptions@gmail, Lisa Changing Perceptions on Facebook, or as always through 216thenet.com. If people get any messages, comments, questions, or if you'd like to be a guest, you'll get that information to me. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy your day tomorrow. Enjoy the sunshine and the weather for us around here that's got the nice break from the sunshine or from the hot air. Have a great day.